The science fiction genre has been one of the most consistently thrilling to explore throughout the history of cinema. There are countless great sci-fi movies that have been released since the birth of cinema as an art form, and it's a genre that's still thriving, with new potential classics released seemingly every year. Here, in this video, we are talking about 10 of the best sci-fi movies of the 20th century. Starting off with number 10 on the list, Brazil. Following one of the most unlucky movie characters of all time, Brazil is a surreal dark comedy dystopian sci-fi movie about a bureaucrat named Sam Lowry. He's roped into a bizarre conspiracy and series of events that he never manages to fully understand. And viewers who sit through this relentless 143-minute movie might come out the other end just as confused as Sam. Still, that feels intentional, given the movie's wholehearted embrace of the absurd. And those willing to go through something mind-bending and sometimes even unpleasant will find a good deal to appreciate. Brazil is a unique trip that's equal parts stressful and funny, and while Terry Gilliam has been behind plenty of compelling movies throughout his directorial career, there's a good argument to be made that Brazil is his most compelling. Number 9 on the list is Jurassic Park. Blockbusters don't get much better than the original Jurassic Park. Though some of its sequels are fun and perhaps a little overhated, none come close to the original, which still stands 30 years later as the undisputed king of the dinosaur subgenre within the broader science fiction genre. Like Spielberg's E.T. from nearly 10 years before, Jurassic Park's greatest strength is its simplicity. There's an island where dinosaurs have been brought back to life, things on the island go wrong, and the characters have to fight for their lives. It's the directness and purity of it all that makes it so great, and the fact most of the effects still look very good helps too, all adding up to make Jurassic Park feel consistently thrilling, imaginative, and very easy to get engrossed in. Next at number 8 is The Matrix. The Matrix asks a compelling question through its central premise. What if life's a simulation, and the majority of the population didn't know? This is something that the main characters are aware of and fight against, given their mission to free the human population from its enslavement to machines, who've trapped the human race in a simulation known as The Matrix. Since its release, it's gone on to be a hugely influential movie, and it's likely that many action and sci-fi movies would look and feel quite different today if it weren't for The Matrix. It's so iconic and ingrained in pop culture that praising it ultimately feels superfluous. But yes, or people shouldn't take it for granted and forget that it's one of the best in the sci-fi genre. Without a doubt, it's no stretch to call it one of the greatest movies of the entire 1990s. Number 7. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. By 1977, Steven Spielberg had made thrillers, crime films, and a horror-of-adventure movie with Jaws. But Close Encounters of the Third Kind marked the first time he made a sci-fi movie. Since then, it's been a genre he's explored many times, and even into the 21st century. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a little more subdued than most of his other sci-fi movies, though, and is just as much a family drama as it is a sci-fi movie. It follows a father who becomes obsessed with the idea of a UFO after witnessing one, and the consequences that come from his subsequent journey. It's a slow-burn sci-fi film that proves rewarding, and easily ranks among Spielberg's best, and perhaps most underrated. Number 6. Terminator 2 Judgement Day. While 1984's The Terminator is a classic in its own right, its 1991 sequel, Terminator 2 Judgement Day, is even better. It bumps up the action and suspense, and uses its bigger budget to move away from the horror genre, which the first film explored, and mount even bigger, more explosive set pieces. It was a new high for James Cameron, as far as action and scale went, and in the decades that followed, his movies only became bigger and more epic in nature. While action's fun, of course, Terminator 2 also endures as a classic because the less explosive and more character-focused moments are fantastic. At its core, it's a heartfelt story about a young boy befriending a robot, and the things they learn from each other. But that it does this while also delivering plenty of amazing action also helps immensely. 5th on the list is Star Wars, Episode 5. Like with Terminator 2, the Star Wars series is one where the first sequel to the original is arguably the best. Here, it's The Empire Strikes Back, which perfectly builds on the first movie from 1977, and increases the scope of the story while also exploring all the main characters in greater depth than what was seen in the first Star Wars. Since The Empire Strikes Back, The Star Wars fanbase has generally been more divided about most movies and shows, but at least there's a consensus surrounding the first 2 Star Wars movies being classics. Some may prefer the original to The Empire Strikes Back, but the latter hits harder emotionally and perfectly utilizes a sequel's inherent capacity to hit the ground running, delivering a non-stop ride of big emotions, great character development, and amazing action. Number 4. Alien, 1979. Taking a page out of Jaws' book, 1979's Alien has a wonderfully simple title that tells you all you need to know with one word. It follows the crew of a spaceship and what happens when they encounter a deadly alien life form that picks all the crew members off one by one. It's as much a horror movie as it is a sci-fi movie, and excels when judged as part of either genre. Its sense of tension and dread is what makes it remarkably effective as a slow-burn sci-fi horror movie. And it's not hard to see why this classic film ended up starting one of the most recognizable science fiction franchises of all time. It's also a key film within the body of work of its director, and additionally holds value for being a star-making turn for its lead actress. Taking the 3rd spot is 2001, A Space Odyssey. Classic science fiction doesn't get much more iconic or frequently parodied than A Space Odyssey. It's a film about evolution, humanity's relationship with technology, and space travel, among other things. It travels through time, looking first to the past, then to what was considered the future back in 1968, and then well off into the distance in a surreal final act that may hint at humanity's possible distant future. It's a film that tries to encompass almost everything, and does so while taking its time. It's amazing that it all comes together so well, but it is a film that's notorious for taking a few viewings to get one's head around. Not that that's a bad thing. Its ambition, multiple iconic scenes, and special effects that still look phenomenal 50+ years on make it an undeniable classic of the sci-fi genre. Second on the list is Blade Runner. Just 3 years after Alien, Ridley Scott directed another science fiction classic that's admittedly very different, but arguably just as legendary and influential for the genre as a whole. That film was 1982's Blade Runner, and though it wasn't beloved on release, time has been kind to it, and it helps that it's a movie with alternate cuts that are seen as better than the original theatrical version. It follows a man who's instructed to kill a group of bioengineered replicants who've gone rogue, and as such, are seen as posing a threat to human beings. Through its simple premise, it explores a host of themes surrounding identity, and what makes one human, and does all this while being beautiful to look at and featuring an impossible-to-forget score by the late Vangelis. And finally, leading the genre is Metropolis. It's amazing to think that perhaps the definitive science fiction film was almost lost to time, yet it thankfully now exists in a 99% complete format. That movie is the 1927 silent epic Metropolis, which tells a seemingly timeless story about class warfare, revolution, and what would have to be done to prevent humanity from going to war with itself as the years go on. Being set in the titular Metropolis, it manages to depict both a utopian society and an underground dystopian one at the same time, given it's the workers who keep the city running, but only the rich bourgeoisie who enjoy its benefits. It wasn't the very first sci-fi movie, but it was the first masterful one, and it's possible to feel its influence in the majority of sci-fi films that followed in its wake. For its cinematic influence, surprisingly relevant narrative, creative special effects, and pacing that still feels efficient and quick, Metropolis stands as arguably the best science fiction film of all time. So, which of these movies are you adding to your watch list? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friends.